Gwarighat to Barmanghat. Yadavendra and his new bride came to see us off. 2 years had gone by since our last journey. For one reason or another, it had been impossible to leave home. In the meantime, Yadavendra had married. Now he could not accompany us. I regretted the fact even more than he, for I had completed my journey so far with him by my side, and had come to rely on and trust him a great deal. My wife Kanta, my younger brother's wife Nita, and her 2 children, Namrata and Amit, had come to see us off as well. 9-year-old Amit was very keen to come with us, if only he had been allowed. It was 17 November 1982. Crossing the river by boat from Gwarighat on the Jabalpur side, we landed on the other bank. We resumed our journey from the same spot where we had ended it earlier. This time there were 4 of us, Dulhani and Sathe, my students, and Pandit. We made a fine team. Pandit's mother tongue is Hindi, Dulhani's is Sindhi, Sathe's is Marathi, and mine is Gujarati. With threads of 4 different languages, what a tapestry we made. We reached Tilwara Ghat in 2 hours. There is a road bridge over the Narmada here, which gets submerged during floods. However, a new bridge, an aqueduct, is under construction nearby, which will be very high and carry traffic, as well as canal water, from the south to the north bank. How strange! The Narmada's own canal will cross the Narmada. We stayed the night at Sivni and were off in the morning. Near Lamheti, the rocks on the banks of the Narmada protrude like ribs. In the afternoon, we reached Dandwara. The famous Dhuadhar Falls are close by. After arranging for overnight lodging, we went to see the falls. Here, the broad Narmada squeezes through a narrow span and plunges violently into an abyss. The fine spray from the falls can be seen from afar, hence the name Dhuadhar, the smoky fall. The rumbling of the falls can be heard from a distance. On coming closer, it intensifies into an ear-splitting roar, like thousands of hammers battering on the rocks. The river rolls forward from the sheer force of the fall, wildly intoxicated with joy. There was plenty of water in the river, and the falls were brimming with youthful exuberance. We stayed a long time watching its aqueous splendor, listening to its thundering sound, getting drenched in its spray. From here, the Narmada enters the beautiful corridor of the marble rocks. She flows through a narrow ravine, carved out from the marble cliffs, creating a world of superlative beauty. Slender as a wand, the Narmada is so attenuated at one point that this spot is known as Bandar Kudni, meaning monkey jump. Here, the river, seemingly lethargic, flows gently through a very narrow cleft. The towering milk-white cliffs of the marble rocks, the soundless Narmada flowing sleepily through the gorge, and absolute solitude. We felt as if we had stepped into another world. The Narmada, who boiled and seethed furiously at Dhuadhar, appeared to have taken a vow of silence here. Small boats cruise along the river on moonlit nights. This 2-kilometer-long, beautiful paradise is near Jabalpur. What Narmada has given to nobody else, she has bestowed on Jabalpur. At Panchavati, this world of beauty comes to an end. There are no more rocks. Now the Narmada flows through soil and sand. At Bheraghat, it seems that the Narmada's stone age has ended and her sand age has begun. It is fortunate that the Narmada flows through this half a kilometer wide gorge. Had she veered a little to the left or to the right, where would this world of beauty have been? That is precisely what the Narmada did in the past. She swept northwards from Dhuandhar and winding around the hill crowned by the Chaunsat Yogini temple. Her narrow, dried-up bed is still there. Then, where was this area of loveliness, this paradise? However, the youthful Narmada must have looked at the marble rocks with an artist's yearning, until one day she gave in to temptation and began to cut, shape and carve them. It must have taken millions of years to carve a way through the rocks, especially since the carving could only be done during the monsoons. But ultimately she succeeded in bringing a bit of heaven to earth. That is why I believe that this world of beauty is no gift of nature. The original riverbed that nature had ordained for the Narmada can be seen even today. But the carved marble rocks are the river's own creation. We left Dhuandhar early the next morning, but lingering and dawdling beside the Narmada, like her rambling waters, we had not gone far by noon. As a result, we had to keep walking in the afternoon. We stayed the night in Bagrai, a village of sculptors. The marble statues available at Bheraghat come from here. I watched a few sculptors working on statues. The half-finished figures were really lovely. Beauty lies in simplicity. Too much workmanship often mars a work of art. We stayed in Dharatikachar the following night. The villager whose veranda we were camping on had a mridanga hanging on the wall. "It appears that you sing here," I commented. He nodded and then added, "There will be singing tonight as well." At night, quite a number of villagers gathered for the kirtan. I sketched them, praising them all the while. I think I overdid the appreciation, for they showed no signs of stopping any time soon. We had a hard time getting to sleep. From Dharatikachar we went to Vikampur. When we sat down to rest, villagers gathered round, among them the pretty official, the Kotuvar. I explained to them that because we were unable to do a continuous parikrama, we were doing it bit by bit. "We have come from Dharatikachar this morning. How far have we walked?" I asked. "About 5 or 6 miles, replied the Kotuvar. "Miles or kilometers?" I asked. "Miles and kilometers are the same thing," he said. By now, even more people had gathered round. The Kotuvar told them about us. "They are on a continuous pilgrimage around the Narmada," he declared. "Bit by bit, not continuous," I said, horrified. "Bit by bit and continuous are the same thing," he retorted hotly. I burst into laughter. The angry and hurt expression on his face made me realize my mistake. The Kotuvar was the most important official in a village. I had been disrespectful to him. This was not right. The very next moment he demanded angrily, "Why are you sitting here?" "To rest and ask the way." "Come on, I will show you the way." He led us to the bank of the Narmada. We were about to sit down there when he bawled, "Not here, over there, on the other side of the Senar river." We crossed over there. Later Dulhani said, "Now I understand why he brought us here. That side of the Senar is Jabalpur district. This side is Narsinghpur. He has expelled us from his district. Crime and punishment, if only our criminal legal system worked as swiftly." We met 2 pilgrims near Jhansi Ghat. They were mother and son. This was the first time I had seen a mother and son on a pilgrimage. At night we stayed in Velkheri. The mother and son had gone on ahead. In the morning, I saw women churning butter in the village, a sight we saw frequently thereafter. Narsingpur is a dairy district. We stopped to rest at Jhalonghat around noon. There was a group of about 20 village people on the sands nearby, singing and playing instruments. We learned that an old man was setting out on the pilgrimage from here, and everyone had come to see him off. They had arrived the night before and slept in the open. In the morning, the old man's head had been shaved. A ceremonial meal prepared and served to little girls, symbolic of the maiden river, and prasad shared out. When the time for departure came, the musicians began playing their instruments. One by one, all the women danced. Finally, the old man danced. Then each in turn touched his feet in respect and began to cry. But the old man said to everyone, "No, don't cry. Give me a happy, laughing send-off. We have just arrived now, but we will see you again tomorrow," I told him. "I am going to stay in Jamunia. I won't go on until you come." Then he left. A sobbing woman said, "Take care of him. He is my uncle." As the others started to return to their village, a young boy said, "Don't go with him." "Why?" "He is chamar. He eats meat and fish." A chamar is a member of the most despised class of society. We spent the night on a raised platform outside the temple at Muar. It was quite cold. We left in the morning and soon came to Jamunia. When we inquired about the old man, the village people directed us to the chamar ghetto. We found him at his son-in-law's house. The old man had gone to bathe in the Narmada. His middle-aged son-in-law told us, "I am also tempted. I have a mind to go along with him." "Excellent. Father-in-law and son-in-law will stick together. But my elder brother says I should not slip away quietly without informing anyone. I must leave properly, in a ceremonial fashion. Then leave tomorrow or the day after." Waving a hand at the calendar, he said, "Look, the Panchak starts tomorrow. That's an unlucky time to leave. I won't be able to go until the full moon." Just then the old man, freshly bathed, returned. He was very pleased to see us. He said, "I told the family, don't try to stop me," but they wouldn't listen. At last it was decided that both of them would set out after the full moon, and 1 or 2 people from the village would go with them. Then I remembered they are chamar folk. Ordinarily, we never begged for alms, but we would certainly beg from here. A woman was churning butter on the veranda. The family was pleasantly surprised when we begged for buttermilk in alms. Because of stupid caste distinctions, no one ever accepted any food from them. Because they did not want to make us wait, 2 women began to churn together. A string was wound round the churning stick, and both women pulled at it from opposite ends. It was very enjoyable watching the to and fro rhythm of the churning. After drinking the buttermilk, we took our leave and continued onwards. In a little while, we saw Baram Kund from a very high cliff beside the Narmada. How elegant the Narmada looked from there, as though a skinny, giggling girl had bloomed into a buxom young woman. The Narmada, bathed in sunlight, was wearing a resplendent, sand-glittering dress that suited her very well. Watching the vibrant blue water flowing amid the silver sand filled my heart with ecstasy. Our footpath went alongside the Narmada. Sand crunched underfoot and slowed our pace. The path threaded among shoots of wheat or chickpea, so it felt like strolling in a garden. The footpath along the river bank is successively made and marred. When the water level sinks, a crop is sown on the fresh mud and the path hides underground. A footpath is like a folk song. Its maker is anonymous. It is not made by a single person. It is a group creation. We stayed in Sankal that night. The man in a nearby house gave us cow dung cakes. On seeing them, I exclaimed, "Pandit, do make bread rolls today." But Pandit did not know how. Then the man explained in detail how to cook rolls. His wife listened for a while, then suggested, "Why don't you go ahead and make them?" Her obedient husband at once kindled the cow dung cakes. When they were reduced to glowing embers, he roasted the bread rolls on top, turning them over and over. When they are done, he instructed, "The rolls will split and crack. You will enjoy them even more if you can get some ghee." I recalled an incident from an earlier journey when we met a husband and wife fellow pilgrims. We were burdened with luggage. The wife, noticing our load, said to her husband, "Why don't you carry some of their stuff?" The husband immediately complied with his wife's wishes and took our bags. It seems to me that a man's good deeds are often prompted by his wife. Gazing at the embers, it occurred to me that the very first human beings living close to nature must have roasted their food on open fires. With a slight exaggeration, we could say that a bread roll cooked like this is nature, chapati is culture, and fried puris and parathas are decadence. While the bread rolls are toasting over a dung fire, Dulhani was cooking dal on the stove. He took care of every aspect of the meal, from lighting the stove to cooking the meal. Sathe, on the other hand, was only interested in the seasoning. He took the spices out of the grocery bag, fried them in oil for some time, and seasoned the food. One day when kheer was being prepared, he was all ready to season that as well. It was a hard job to convince him that kheer should not be spiced. But I must admit, his seasoning had made the meals extremely tasty, despite the huge amounts of chili. One day he chopped up a lot of green chilies. "Only put half of that in," I said, a bit frightened. He added less than half. I was very pleased with his obedience. Yet only a little later, saying that tomatoes would offset the pungency of the chilies, he threw in the rest. Near Ghugari, the sound of the Narmada rippling over stones could be heard again. From there to Piparia. When we asked for shelter at the temple, the priest flatly refused. There was no space. Nowhere to stay, and it was getting dark. Just then an old man came along and said, "Come on, come to my house." On the way, he told people, "Guests have come. I am taking them to my house." He had already given shelter to a holy man. Now he took the four of us home as well. "We feel you are one of us," I said. "In this world nobody belongs to us," he replied. Then added, "And nobody is alien either. Is not it a paradox?" As we went on in the morning, we met the Narmada singing over the rocks. After Shamanapur, at Hathia, She tumbled among marble boulders again. She always looks gorgeous in her gown of marble. We spent the night in Chinki. Going on the next morning, we reached Dhuandhar, little Dhuandhar. Small it may be, but it's just as forceful. The waves jostle each other in the same way, swirl in circles, crowd together to overflowing, and carve the rocks with the same fervor as before. At noon we came across the Ser river. How meekly she comes to meet the Narmada. Both flow through sand, so there is no sound. The water is so clear that unless it glitters in the sunshine, it looks deceptively like a dry riverbed. We had just finished lunch when a group of pilgrims came along, among them 2 well-to-do women. We discovered that they were sisters. They had set out from Amarkantak and spent the monsoon retreat at Belkheri. "Did you face any problems on the way?" I asked. "What troubles? Mother Narmada takes the greatest care," replied the elder sister. "They would stop here." "Where will you sleep?" I asked. One of their companions said, "As the sisters are with us, we will go up to the hut above. Otherwise, we would have slept here on the sand." "In this cold?" "What cold?" I was amazed. We had already started feeling the cold set in, and they were asking, "What cold?" The mother and son were not in this group either. They had moved on very fast. We reached Satdhara in the evening. Rocks were scattered in all directions. Here and there it looked as if pools had formed in the river. It was a charming scene. There is a road bridge here over the Narmada. There are very few bridges over such lovely places. Night fell very soon, darkness spread, but it was not far from here to Burman, so we continued even in the dark. The sky was liberally prepared with stars. We could hear the sound of the evening service from distant temples. At last, we arrived at the Dharamsala by climbing a steep and irregular cliff in the dark. Many pilgrims had already settled in, and there was not a single room vacant. Finally, an aged beggar allowed us to share his room. We had been expecting to meet the mother and son here, as we had covered about 20 kilometers that day, but they were not here either. Were they walking or flying?